Hi, welcome back. I just received this really cool mechanical pencil kit from 4 Candies. And you know how much I love mechanical pencils, so I chose a perfect reference, which is a fish in a plastic bag, specifically to test and review this kit for you guys. So let's get started. I'm using this 250 GSM paper from my ordinary sketchbook, which is available in almost all the art stores or stationeries around the world. So you don't have to use any fancy paper if you want to give this a try. And the drawing portion area is 6 x 8 inches. So the package I received included 2 kits of mechanical pencil, and that got me super excited. Both the kits are almost the same, but I'll be using this one as it caught my attention due to these colorful LEDs. It includes mechanical pencils in sizes 0.5, 0.7, 0.9 and 2 mm, each with its own unique LEDs. So here are the standard HB LEDs, chunky 2 mm LEDs in various grades of hardness, and the real showstoppers are these colorful LEDs. These are going to add such a fun twist in today's drawing because I also chose the reference accordingly. Plus the kit comes with erasers and sharpeners, so I'm all set to create a beautiful drawing using this kit. Okay, so without any further ado, let's start our drawing. And I'm using this 0.5 mm mechanical pencil along with HB LEDs. I decided to divide the whole drawing area into 1 x 1 inch boxes. So for that, I'm marking all consecutive inch markings on the scale for all 4 sides. When the markings are done, it's time to join them very carefully to achieve 8 rows and 6 columns respectively. Okay, so moving on to the outlining process, and as always, I'm starting from the top left portion and adding these small curved strokes and lines. Then creating a curved line in the second row, mainly by adding small strokes and joining them together. I'm also adding these slant lines and strokes for the folds of the shopping bag, which are formed due to the knot. Notice that I'm also shading some of the areas slightly which are darker in the reference image. For the knot portion, I'm adding strokes to create this square type shape and then lightly shading it afterwards. As we know that the bag is transparent, the outline should be light and not too prominent. This will help us in giving us the illusion of transparency when we will add details and shading later on. I'm drawing a basic shape of bag and incorporating the folds and wrinkles formed due to the knot. As the bag is half filled with water, so I'm adding this horizontal line along with shading the required areas to create a 3D base. Layer the graphite over some of the folds to create an illusion of depth around the fold. I'm also adding some strokes and lines at the bottom of the bag to create the impact of surface with the bag. The upper portion of the bag has some missing lines and details, so I'm adding these strokes and connecting them with the folds to create a crease. Now let's draw the fish, and I'm firstly changing the lead and using a light orange shade. But it wasn't turning out as bright and impactful as I wanted. So I changed the lead again and used this vibrant orange this time. I'm adding a mixture of small and curved strokes after carefully analyzing the reference image. Notice that I'm drawing the basic structure of fish and lightly shading a few areas. And that is how we are done with the outlining process in a very short time. Okay, so let's start the shading process, and I'm adding an HB LED in the mechanical pencil to add a base layer. I'm using my favorite pressure technique to shade the area. I'm applying higher pressure at low angle while working on the areas which are darker in the reference image. And then for the lighter areas, I'm reducing the pressure while maintaining the angle low. This is how we will achieve the required 3D base in no time. You can also use lighter grade LEDs to shade the lighter areas. The knot portion has a tint of orange, so I'm firstly adding a light base using an orange color, and then shading the knot using the same HB pencil. As the knot is relatively darker, so I'm keeping the pressure high on my pencil to achieve the desired tone. I'm also adding some horizontal strokes to create a crease texture on the knot. As the bag is transparent, so for the portion under the knot, I'm keeping the pressure very low and shading the area very carefully. Make sure not to add too much of the graphite as it will make the bag look opaque instead of transparent. I'm applying higher pressure to add some darker strokes for the texture. Okay, it's time to blend the base layer, and I'm using my small size dry brush for this purpose. The blending isn't turning out the way I wanted, and it is taking too long to achieve a seamless blended layer. So I'm shifting towards a small blending stump and going over the whole area. And look how beautifully it has blended the layer in such a short time. And by the way, you can get access to our premium content and support this channel through Patreon. You can sign up through different membership levels and get access to all the outline and grid references, etc. We have an ever-growing library of hundreds of exclusive and real-time tutorials. And you will also get access to 4 new tutorials every month. You can also post your artworks in our active community of patrons and participate in our weekly critique sessions where I give my honest and positive critiques on your artworks, so you can improve your skills and get better with your drawing. Visit the link in description and become a premium member today. And a huge shout out to all these incredible individuals who backed our channel on Patreon last month. Their generous support enabled me to produce this free tutorial for all of you guys. Moving on to the lower portion of the bag, and I'm firstly darkening the outline and shading the areas respectively. When we look at the reference image, we can see that the sides of the bag have shadows. And to create such an effect, I'm layering graphite by shading the area with a variable pressure. I'm applying higher pressure while working on the right side and reducing it as I move towards the left side. Make sure to keep your pencil at a very low angle, and that is how we can create a perfect gradient without any harsh strokes or lines. I'm also shading the folds on the start of this water portion. For the left side of the bag, I'm shading the area by repeating the similar process as I did for the right side. To make the bottom look more impactful, I'm shading the required portion after analyzing the reference image. Notice that I'm leaving some areas as they are and shading some spots darker to create a proper 3D base. Now to blend the whole area, I'm using the same blending stump I used earlier and going over the base layer we just added. Okay, so now to make the texture look 3D and detailed, I'm adding a 4B lead into my mechanical pencil. And now creating the required depth and texture in the whole lower portion of the bag. I'm carefully shading the area and adding a few small strokes for the texture where required. The right side of the bag is not as dark as the reference image, so I'm layering graphite to achieve the desired darkness. I accidentally got this patchiness due to my sweaty finger on this area. So to fix this, I'm going to use the kneaded eraser and kneading it first to shape it according to my need. And now lightly dabbing it over the area, and it will pick up the excess graphite very effectively. Now blending this right side of the bag using a blending stump to achieve a smooth layer. I'm using the same side of the blending stump to shade and blend this patchy area. Okay, so here comes the most interesting part, and that is the highlighting, and it will make the whole bag look realistic in no time. So the trick is pretty much same as we usually do, that is using the perfection eraser for the softer highlights. I'm going over all the lighter areas and scraping the excess graphite. And notice that I'm also adding some new strokes by applying higher pressure on my eraser to achieve desired bright highlights. Now for the softer areas, I'm reducing the pressure on my eraser and moving it in circular motions. That is how we will achieve a blended highlight which is brighter from the center and softer from the edges. I'm also adding a few curved strokes of variable length on the knot as well by using the same perfection eraser with a fine tip. And look, it has already started to look round and a bit 3D. Okay, now moving on to the next portion of the bag, and it has some blended highlights. So I'm using the same perfection eraser and picking up the graphite. Notice that I'm starting from the lower portion and moving my hands upwards in almost a flicking manner to achieve a perfect highlight with a softer end. The texture on the right side is a bit different as there are some slant highlights as well. So I'm picking up the graphite to add the texture accordingly. I'm also going around these folds and creases, and it will make them pop up even more. The surface of the perfection eraser is kind of chalky, so the graphite tends to stick to it, making it dirty. And if you use the same dirty tip over the lighter areas, it will make it look patchy instead of lighter. So make sure to clean it more frequently by rubbing it on a rough surface or a scraper to increase its effectiveness. The base of bag is still looking a bit harsh and unblended, so I'm going over the upper edges very carefully using a blending stump, and it has blended the area without making it too dull or smudged. The shadow on the right side of the bag is looking white, so to clean its spill, I'm using a perfection eraser and moving my eraser in back and forth motions. This will pick up the excess graphite without making a harsh edge. To further create a softer edge, I'm using my blending stump and going over the area to create a perfect gradient. I'm going back and forth with my tools to achieve the desired texture on this middle portion of the bag. For the bottom part of the bag, I'm following the similar process of adding softer highlights using a perfection eraser as I did for the rest of the bag. The highlights here are a bit more defined and bright, so I'm adding them accordingly. Okay, so let's make the highlights more shiny and 3D, and for that I'm using the sharp tip of the eraser which is available at the back of the mechanical pencil. I'm going over the previous highlights to make them more shiny and adding a few more strokes in between them. These highlights are not turning out as bright and thin as I want. So I'm shifting towards my Mono 0 eraser to add the rest of the brighter highlights. I'm adding these small strokes over the edges and in between the highlights to achieve required texture, just like the reference image. Notice that I'm applying variable pressure on my eraser while adding these highlights to incorporate a range of lighter and brighter tones, depending upon the area I'm working on. Make sure to keep the tip clean and sharp at all times while adding such bright and intricate details. You can rub it vertically on a sandpaper to achieve sharp corners all around the tip. That is perfect for adding thin highlights, and you also don't have to sharpen the tip again and again. Just rotate the eraser and keep erasing until all the sharp corners are used. I'm also adding these wavy strokes to mimic the wrinkles texture, just like the reference image. For the knot, I'm following the similar process and going over some selective highlights to make them pop up even more. Moving on to the bag portion under the knot, and I'm adding these straight strokes starting from the knot and extending them downwards. Keep on relating to the reference image while adding these intricate details to make sure you are on the right track. You can also go in between these darker strokes to create a separation between them, and it will immediately make them look more dark and impactful, just like this. I'm repeating the similar process and going over the previous highlights to make them more bright and shiny. The highlights at the bottom of the bag are looking a bit too sharp, so I'm toning them down by dabbing my kneaded eraser over them, and it will create a perfect texture along with softening the highlights. Okay, so let's move on to the detailing of a fish, and I'm firstly adding a base layer using the orange color. I'm adding this layer thoroughly by keeping the pressure high on my pencil while working on darker areas. And for the lighter areas, I'm reducing the pressure to achieve the desired base, just like the reference image. For the fins, I'm adding these thin yet defined strokes by keeping the pressure high on my pencil and flicking it in the respective direction to achieve the desired texture. I'm repeating the similar process of adding texture and a base layer for the rest of the fish. To increase the saturation of the fish, I'm filling the red lead in the mechanical pencil and adding another layer over the orange one, but make sure to keep it light. And to create a perfect gradient, I'm going over the intersection point of darker and lighter tones using an orange color. And this layering will create a perfect gradient without any harsh separation between two shades, as the light is not reaching the lower portion of the fish, so it is making the fish appear dark from the bottom. So to add such shadow on the fish, I'm using my HB and 4B lead and shading the required areas. I'm also shading the eye and going around it by keeping the pressure high and gradually decreasing it as I move slightly away from the ring. This will create a perfect gradient without any harsh lines or strokes. I'm also filling in the eye portion with a pitch black shade, but make sure to leave this top right portion in an arc-like shape for the highlight to make the eye look 3D instead of flat. To blend this layer, I'm going over it with an orange lead, and this will create a perfect blend with its surrounding. The upper fin is also missing a base layer, so I'm adding it by keeping the pressure very low. Now it's time to add highlights and texture all over the fish, and I'm using my Mono 0 eraser with a flat tip for this purpose. I'm adding these curved strokes on the mouth portion and toning it down using an orange lead later on. And look how the fish has started to look realistic and 3D. That is why I always ask you guys to focus on every single detail, as these intricate details play a very important role in making your drawing look realistic. I'm also adjusting the darker texture in between the highlighting process to achieve the desired results. Okay, so to make the eye shiny and pop up, I'm firstly sharpening the tip of my electric razor to create a very thin tip and adding this thin ring around the whole eye. This highlight is looking a bit white, so I'm going inside it and layering a black color. And this will make the ring look more thin and defined. I'm going back and forth with my tools until I achieve the desired results. As this mechanical pencil set has very basic colors of lead to add required reddish tone in the fish. So I'm using a bright red color from my Faber-Castell Classic Color pencil set and layering it onto the brighter areas of the fish. Okay, so now it's time to create the shadow of the bag, and I'm using my 4B lead and firstly sketching the base outline. The shadow is almost always darker near the object and gradually becomes light as we move away from the object. So I'm shading the area by keeping pressure high near the bag and reducing it as I move downwards. As always, I'm using a blending stump in circular motions to blend this layer thoroughly. The shadow near the bag is still looking a bit dull, so to add required depth, I'm using my 8B pencil and layering the graphite over it. I'm blending this layer using the same blending stump I used earlier. Notice that I'm using the dirty side of the blending stump to shade the reflection of creases and folds of the bag. Now let's add these few curved strokes using a mono zero eraser, and it has already started to look realistic and 3D. I'm also adding some blended highlights to match it with the reference image. And with this last step, we are done with this quick and easy fish in a bag drawing. Creating these free tutorials needs a significant amount of time and energy, so if you found this one valuable, please show your support by liking this video. Your support keeps me inspired to bring you more creative content. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.